This podcast is brought to you by Progressive. Are you thinking more about how to tighten up your budget these days? Drivers who save by switching to Progressive save over $700 on average, and customers can qualify for an average of 6 discounts when they sign up. A little off your rate each month goes a long way. Get a quote today at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. National annual average insurance savings by new customers surveyed in 2020. Potential savings will vary. Discounts vary and are not available in all states and situations.
From earaches to strep tests, there's MinuteClinic at CVS. See a provider, fill a prescription, and grab essentials. Or see us online with telehealth options. That's healthier made easier. Visit MinuteClinic at CVS today. Services vary by location. See MinuteClinic.com for details.
Hey y'all, welcome to another episode of the Hardy Wrestling Podcast with your girl Stephanie Hardy. So this episode is going to be a little bit different. So this week I've been preparing for my debut as a first-time commentator for the BellaDonna Division inaugural event Genesis, which is taking place at the Gadsden Mall here in Gadsden, Alabama. And I have also been having great conversations with women who are going to be in the show over the past couple of weeks. I did talk to owner Casey Dillon. And then after I spoke with her, I also talked with Brittany Blake, who is the Women's Superstars United Women's Champion. And I talked to the Woad. And this week, I got to have 2 amazing conversations with Central Empire Wrestling Women's Champion Valentina Loca out of New Mexico. And I had a great conversation with owner of the BellaDonna Division and Alabama Pro Wrestling Hall of Famer Veronica Fairchild. And they're both going to talk about how they got started wrestling, what their motivations are and what they're looking forward to with this event coming up on Saturday. Also, if you haven't gotten your tickets, please get your tickets. The link to buy your tickets is also on my Instagram. So please go on there and buy those tickets. General admission $15. Ringside seats $20. Please go and support women's wrestling. So I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Hardy Wrestling Podcast.
Hello.
Hello, Valentina.
How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Oh, doing just fine. I'm a little sweaty. I'm actually recording right now outside of the Black and Brave Wrestling Academy, so I apologize if there's any traffic, but we are all good to go. I'm all yours.
Okay, so you just got out of training.
Yeah, we've been training all day, so that's why when I had asked if it was going to be video or audio, I was like, okay, let me make sure that I look like a person, but this works out just fine.
Right. I've been trying to sort of transition in and out of the whole audio thing, but it's okay. So Valentina Loca, I'm so happy that you're on the Hardy Wrestling Podcast. So I'm going to start and ask you the question that I ask all of my guests, and that's, when did you fall in love with wrestling?
Okay, awesome. Well, I guess I'll also give like the super cliche. I started watching wrestling when I was a child. So I grew up around the era of like 2004, 2005 wrestling. That's usually when I was about 9 years old, and that's when I had gotten into it. So big on like the SmackDown era, a little bit of Monday Night Raw, and that's around the time when I was like, this is awesome. I want to do this.
Okay. So when did you know you wanted to pursue it as a career?
Honestly, it was actually pretty late in life that I had decided to actually pursue it, because if for those listeners out there that don't know, I'm only about 4'10", 100 pounds, maybe on a good day. So the odds were pretty much stacked against me from the get-go, and it wasn't really like the first thought to be like, I'm gonna go try body slamming people with all of my tiny body. But I got into a little bit of athletics beforehand. I had done some MMA and things of that nature. So my coach during that time had really confidence in me. He's like, no, you're actually pretty athletic. You can go ahead and try giving something a shot here. And so I decided to pack up and move from New Mexico all the way over here to Iowa, where I'm still living, where I'm training at the Black and Brave Wrestling Academy.
Okay, now earlier you did mention how you had started sort of watching wrestling when you were a child around the 2000s. So who were some of your favorites from around that time?
Oh, absolutely. My two favorites above all else were Eddie Guerrero and Rey Mysterio. They're probably my biggest inspirations, not only just as a wrestler, but as a person. They were really awesome to see on the television, not only just because they were like super talented and probably arguably the greatest of all time, but because they were also super awesome at representation. Because as a fellow Hispanic, when you see people that look like you doing really awesome things, you're like, that's kind of cool. I think I can do that too. So just above all else, those two will always be high on my list.
Yeah, those are two really good ones, because it seemed like those two really ruled SmackDown around that time, because SmackDown seemed like the show around that time. So it's just kind of like, when you think of, like, when I think of SmackDown, outside of thinking of The Rock, I think of those two, specifically. And it's just everything they were both able to accomplish, even in WCW, even into WWE, were always, great things. And I enjoyed them, as performers and everything. And at times, I do find myself wondering, what would Eddie Guerrero be doing now around this time if he were still here with us? So It's just, those two are some of my favorites, and I love to see them fight each other. Like, that's them fighting each other is just like, you're in for, a feast for the eyes in terms of athleticism. So I understand that.
yeah, and you can imagine maybe as a 10-year-old child, me like loving these two guys so much, and then the moment when Eddie had turned on Ray and gave him that suplex on the stairs and there was blood everywhere, I was just like heartbroken as a 10-year-old. That was like the worst thing to happen in my entire world at that time. And I'm just thinking, like, man, what a time that was, just to be alive in that time of, like you were mentioning, in SmackDown, and just the general time of being, for sure.
Yeah, it was just absolutely insane. I feel lucky to have even, you don't think about it, but to even when you think back on it, you feel really lucky to have experienced any of that at all. So, how did you pursue training once you decided to go all in on wrestling?
Like I had mentioned, I decided kind of on a spur moment. I was like, I'm going to pack up everything and go to where I know nobody in the middle of the country. I had never really lived outside of New Mexico for my entire life. So when I decided to move to Iowa to train here at the Black and Brave Wrestling Academy, it was a little bit of a daunting experience, because even though I did do a little bit of MMA beforehand, it wasn't anything in comparison to what I would be learning here. So I wasn't the most athletic person, I'll say that, but I think above all else, like an intangible, because like I said, I'm not the biggest and I'm certainly not the strongest, but the thing that I can really toot my horn about is my work ethic. I work extremely hard. I don't give up, and that's something I'm looking forward to bringing into my match here this weekend in Gadsden for the BellaDonna Division's first show.
Right. I'm actually looking forward to seeing, all of your abilities, in your match at the BellaDonna Division show Genesis. Like, I'm so excited to be witnessing that and to be a part of it as well, because I'll actually be making my debut as a commentator. So I'll be, calling your action, but I feel like that's going to be really cool to see. And so you mentioned that you train at the Black and Brave Wrestling Academy. That's where Seth Rollins is a trainer, right?
Yep, him and Merrick Brave are both my lead trainers here at the school, and they've been incredibly instrumental to just my success, and everything that I do in wrestling is because of them, because they, were cool enough to invite and accept a girl from small town New Mexico to come try and pursue her dreams. So I really can't say good enough things about them. Like, they're just awesome, and everything that I've done for my training, just even how I present myself in the world of wrestling, is all because of them. So I definitely hold them in really high regard.
Yeah, I was just talking to Brittany Blake, and shout out to her. I was just talking to her last week in terms of her training, and she got trained from Drew Gulak. And it's just, I was telling her how amazing I find it that these people who you wouldn't necessarily think from the outside looking in, who are just superstars, actually make time to actually help train the future. And I was just telling her how cool I think that is. That they're actually reaching back to actually pull up the future, when they don't necessarily have to, because they could be really busy, but they've got all this other stuff going on, but then they actually come back and actually help train. I think that's amazing.
Oh, absolutely, 100%. Even now, like, because I'm sure, as we all know, Beth and his fiance Becky, they had their first child, but even still, like, being a dad, as much as all that like entails just alone, I imagine that's a pretty hefty job with the schedule that he has. He still manages time to still be here with us, which I think is absolutely amazing, and it really goes to show the kind of person that he is, that, you know, he cares enough to want to see us do well as, you know, doing the things that are going on in his life as well.
Right. Like, that's just cool. It's just amazing. So I want to ask you, you know, you did mention how you are, and I have seen in some of your Instagram posts and everything that you did mention that you're about 4'10". Is that?
Yeah.
So how did that, you know, sort of like, how were you necessarily able to sort of live, you know, through that? And then how were you able to sort of, you know, help that adapt to your wrestling ability and your wrestling style?
Sure. Honestly, it was pretty tough because, like I mentioned, especially starting out, I was not the most athletic person. So I learned pretty quickly that I would need to really adapt to my size and use that as my advantage rather than using it as a hindrance, because, you know, when you first start, you want to lift all the people and do all the cool moves that you've seen on TV, and then you realize, well, I'm going to make do with what I got. And I think instead of using that as something to get down on myself upon, I kind of turned that on its head and decided, hey, I'm going to use this to really make myself unique. So everything that I do and everything that I was taught wasn't necessarily conventional, but it was something that I try to use to my advantage. So when you are there to call the action here in Gadsden this weekend at the BellaDonna Division, you and everybody else in attendance will get to see me duck, dodge, bob and weave, and hopefully wrestle some circles around Harley Fairfax.
Right. Like, I admire the way you were able to, you know, persevere through that and still be able to adapt, because a lot of people, you know, probably would have felt discouraged in the idea that they may not, you know, be as big, you know, as everyone else or as fast as everyone else. But it seems as if you took that and basically, you know, use that to your advantage, which is always, you know, great to have alongside, you know, passion. And I'm just really, you know, I find that very admirable that you were able to do that. And I am really excited to see more of what you have to offer there. So you also mentioned when you were talking about Rey Mysterio and Eddie Guerrero, you were talking about representation in terms of being a Hispanic woman, you know, from New Mexico. How important is it, you know, to be a great example of Hispanic wrestling talent, you know, in wrestling now, whether it be an independent or in mainstream?
Honestly, above all else, I think that was the thing that I placed most priority on when I started wrestling. Honestly, like, it's all cool and fine and well and dandy to like go out and want to, you know, make a lot of money or be really famous, but honestly, I just wanted to make fellow people that looked like me feel the same way that Eddie and Ray had made me feel, because I recognized and I realized how important that was to me. And so when I started in wrestling, that was my main goal, just to really continue on that representation, because thankfully, like, I've gotten to see so many cool role models like Eddie and Ray, but also like female role models like AJ Lee and Bailey and other Hispanic women as well. So just being able to continue that, I guess, legacy in terms of representation for the Hispanic community while we wait for this gentleman to pass by casually. But yeah, like I was saying, I think above all else, that's the thing I wanted to accomplish more than anything in wrestling, because I hold that in such high regard. So if anything, even if, you know, I leave one mark on wrestling, it's that I was able to make somebody of, you know, similar descent be like, yeah, that's awesome that she was able to follow her dreams, so then I can follow my dreams, whatever they might be.
Okay. Do you feel that wrestling now is in a good place in terms of how Hispanic wrestlers, male or female, are being portrayed?
Honestly, you know, there's always work to be done, but I'm definitely happy with all the people that, like, we're seeing on TV. So many different luchadors on WWE, from Lucha House Party to you know, Humberto Carrillo, Angel Garza, just so many people that I can name off the top of my head. And just the fact that I can, like, name off that many people that are such an invisible light currently in this day and age, like, is awesome. And even, like, with the ladies, like, on AEW, like, Diamante, she's awesome. And all the other ladies that are coming down from Texas that are on AEW Dark, you know, I see you, I notice you. And I guess especially more being from New Mexico, also instilled me with like a sense of pride, because when you hear about New Mexico, you really don't know very many wrestlers that come from New Mexico, at least that are on such a visible scale. So I kind of adopted that responsibility as well, kind of put that extra thing on my back to be like, all right, I'm here. I want to be, you know, accurate and representation of my people, but I also want to be like, hey, New Mexico is here too, and New Mexico is awesome. Thankfully, it looks like there's more people coming out of New Mexico thanks to a training school that's ran by a guy named Gino Rivera. He started up a school in Albuquerque not too long ago, so he's been training people, and more people are coming out, which I think is super awesome. But when you see me in person, you'll definitely know, oh, she's from New Mexico.
Yeah, because I did see on your Instagram where you did have gear that's sort of centered on the New Mexican flag.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool, and I was just like, oh, that is so pretty, and I just love the coloring and everything. So I was just like, yup, I like that a lot.
Yeah, it's definitely a little running gag with my friends, because whenever I come out with the gear, and I also come out with like a physical New Mexico flag too, so I'm like, hey guys, in case you didn't know, I'm from New Mexico.
Yeah, that's kind of like what Thunder Rosa does to an extent, because she has, when she comes out at AEW or for anything else, you know, she'll come out dressed in an outfit that's like half American flag or half, you know, the Mexican flag. Mm-hmm. And then she'll come out with a Mexican flag too, and that's just like, yes.
100%. She's great, and I've had the awesome opportunity to work with Thunder Rosa, and she's pretty awesome as well. So yeah, if I can, you know, help aid in those representation efforts, like, I'm all for it. That's 100% something that I'm on board for.
Well, that's beautiful to hear. So how has the culture of independent wrestling, you know, treated you since you started wrestling?
Oh boy, I guess the way that I would explain it without getting like too therapist's couch on you, I've gotten to do like a really amazing amount of things, like things that 10-year-old me would never have imagined that I've gotten to do in my life. And well, I've gotten to do some like really amazing things. I've also fallen on my face quite a lot. So I think those experiences are just as important as like the successes, because if anything, it makes you appreciate the successes that much more, to know what it's like to, you know, fall on your face but get back up and keep going at it. Like I've gotten a really awesome opportunity to go to Canada a few times. That was something I never thought I'd do. I've gotten a chance to be an extra on WWE TV. That was something I never thought I would do. Like, me on TV, somebody from like a town of 200 people, and just being able to do that, whatever capacity I was able to do, is just something super mind-blowing, but also something that I'm super grateful for. I take every experience as it is, and I'm just grateful for all of it, because when you look at me on paper, like, none of this was supposed to happen to me. Like, small town girl, tiny, actually. So I think just being able to do all the things that I've done, and even with more on the horizon, I'm just super excited and super grateful for all of it.
That's pretty good. And I thought it was funny how you mentioned therapist couch answer. Like, I mean, this is a safe space, so whatever you said, you know, was going to be, you know, okay. But I thought it was funny that you mentioned that you were a WWE extra. Like, when was this, and when did this happen? Because I may have seen you and probably just didn't know.
Okay, well, it wasn't anything like too noteworthy. I was just a part of No Way Jose's conga line that during that time that was happening. I got a chance to be in his conga line a few times, and so that was a good time, like just getting out and going out to party and having a good time. Like, those are experiences I'll cherish for a lifetime.
Oh, that's cool, because one of my previous guests, his name is Prince Adonis. He wrestles out in Tennessee. He was an extra for Monday Night Raw at one point, and I think it involved Brock Lesnar attacking Seth Rollins, and he was an ENT.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, and he basically had to pick him up, you know, on the stretcher and put him on the, you know, the ambulance and everything. And just to hear that story of how that turned out is just amazing. So anytime I can ask any questions about, you know, being an extra, like that has to be pretty exciting. You know, it was exciting to hear his story, and it's exciting to hear your story too, because I really did love No Way Jose. He was cool.
Oh, he's very cool, very nice guy too. Like, he's awesome. He was super welcoming every time. Like, he always stressed to have fun. He was like, no matter what happens out there, just go out and have fun, because we only live once, so, you know, let's go out and do it. And so he was always super positive and super welcoming, and just the environment in general was super awesome. Just being able to do that was great.
Yes. So How has the pandemic affected you this year in terms of your training or in terms of your wrestling career, and how have you been able to sort of pivot through that?
Oh man, I think I would be amiss if I said it didn't, kind of hamper my efforts a little bit, as it did, I'm sure, with mostly everybody that's going on in the world right now. When the pandemic had first started, I actually was back home in New Mexico, unfortunately, for a funeral, but because of all the stuff that was going on, New Mexico locked itself down completely, like airports, borders, and everything. So I actually couldn't leave New Mexico for about 3 months after the pandemic had started. So I really didn't have any access to like a ring or anything like that. I was kind of a sitting duck, not sure when they were going to let me leave the state. So I always tell that story as the time that New Mexico held me hostage. But thankfully, when I was able to come back to Iowa, the school was open for the most part, of course, with like masks, temperature checks, getting COVID tests when you were out of town. So we were like all very proactive here at the school. And what's nice about our community here is that everybody that trains here at the school is pretty much people that live here in town in Davenport. So we were able to still really keep like our tight-knit family and still be able to train in, even if it was a limited capacity. Like, just those are like the very small things that I was grateful for, because I know that not everyone got to have that. So just being able to have that outlet, even though we weren't able to like run shows or go to shows, just having access to a ring in general was something that I was greatly appreciative of, for sure.
Well, that sounds like it was a whirlwind of everything that you were having to deal with in terms of loss, and then having to sort of, pivot around the pandemic in the sense that you weren't allowed to go anywhere. I bet that was pretty hard. But aside from that, it's good that everything has sort of, it's like everyone's sort of finding a way to sort of get back to normal-ish. So, here's hoping that everything can kind of just turn around a little bit more. And hopefully everything will be okay at some point. So you did mention in the interview that you had traveled a little bit in terms of your wrestling career. Where has been your favorite place to wrestle?
Oh, man.
Outside of the U.S.
All right. Well, when I got to go to Canada, I got to do some extra work for Impact. And the venue that they had used when they were in Toronto was probably like my favorite venue I've ever been to. It was like a nightclub, and the way that they set it up with the lighting was just super awesome. I didn't get to have a match per se, but I got to do some things in like the extra nature where I got to like catch people on dives, or get bipped off by someone off the stage. So like even those opportunities to be on live pay-per-view just in that limited capacity was something still super awesome, because at the end of the day, I'm just a huge nerd for wrestling. So it's a very much like, I'm very happy to be here kind of mentality, because I feel like that's what makes things the most fun, because it can be really easy, like in the mess of things when you're trying to go here, there, and everywhere, to really get lost and not stop to smell the roses. So that's something I definitely try to do to keep myself grounded, like whether it be a big opportunity or a small opportunity. Just having that chance to do what I do is something that I'll always consider to be a favorite of mine.
Yes, I find that if you do that, you just don't lose the love for what it is that you do, because I feel like sometimes in life, we have a tendency to get in routine, and then we get so used to a thing that we love so much that eventually we sort of become, I guess, apathetic to it. And we get kind of, I don't want to say bored with it or whatever, but I find that once you take time to celebrate like the small wins, then it helps you to become more appreciative of where you are in comparison to where you've been and where you're gonna go. So I think that's a good philosophy to have. So who has been your favorite opponent to wrestle, and do you have any dream opponents?
Ooh, that's a good one, because I've wrestled lots of people, and I feel like I've taken something from everybody that I've wrestled that I've really enjoyed. So let me give a second to think about it, because for their own separate reasons, I love wrestling certain people. I will say off the top of my head, just as a note, a match that I had with Max the Impaler, who's they used to be out of Ohio, and I think now they're living in the Pennsylvania area. A match that I did with them at a company called Rise, I want to say a few years ago, was probably one of my favorite matches, just because I also love telling stories. So the story of like David versus Goliath, little person versus big person, will always have my heart. And so I think if we ever see that match on YouTube or wherever it may come out, I think we told a really awesome story, and I think that the audience was really invested in it. So they're definitely a favorite opponent of mine, and I always tell them, I'm like, I'm down to wrestle you again, please. Yeet me to Indonesia. I want that. But they're definitely a favorite opponent of mine. But also, I will shout out Heather Reckless, just because I like to consider her like my fight forever partner. She's also somebody who was trained here at the Black and Brave Wrestling Academy, and I feel like I've wrestled her here in Iowa, Indiana, Kentucky. I've wrestled her everywhere, but I feel like we have just that chemistry where we can kind of tell what each other's thinking, and we can come up with some really cool magic whenever we're in a ring together. So I always appreciate whenever I get a chance to square up with her. And then dream opponents per se. Because see, the thing for me is I want to wrestle everybody. Like, I want to go everywhere and do everything. So like whittling it down to like a person or a few people, it's like, man.
Well, even if you can't name, all of them, just name just one.
Okay.
If you can.
For sure. I think I would like to wrestle either Sasha Banks. She's a good one because since her inspiration, was also Eddie Guerrero, and I feel like our styles are similar, and especially like in our characters too. Like, she has a lot of attitude, and I have a lot of attitude. So seeing those two people butt heads, I think that would be interesting. But also, man, I also think that potentially wrestling someone like a Jordan Grace would be fun, because that power against like my speed, I think that would be fun as well. So I'm down for a challenge, like big or small. Like, I just want to test my mettle against everyone and see what we can do.
Yeah, Sasha Banks is actually my favorite female wrestler of all time. I've said multiple times I feel like she's the greatest. So I feel like that would be a really good, match for you to have. And even Jordan Grace, that would be really cool too. And speaking of Jordan Grace, who was Jazz's partner, who's actually going to be on the BellaDonna show, I had to do that little segue there.
Oh, weird. Absolutely. I'm glad you did. I was hoping you would.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I'm so glad you were rooting for me in that. It's just, you're going to be facing Harley Fairfax. So how have you been, preparing, for that match that's taking place Saturday?
Ooh. Well, I've done my research a little bit. I've seen what Mrs. Fairfax has got going on, and I'm not gonna lie, she's got a look to her, and I can appreciate that, because throughout my career, I've been thrown at different challenges to either sink or swim, to survive or die. So I'm not gonna really consider her to be anything different. Honestly, it's gonna be business as usual for me, defying the odds, trying to make things happen, because, well, I may get, thrown to Indonesia or thrown into the third row. I think something that Miss Harley might not be prepared for is that the fact that I just don't give up. So she can, pan me into the mat, slam me 1, 2, 3 times, but I don't know if she's going to have a game plan for what happens when I keep getting back up and keep getting in her face. And in fact, I'll just be like, what's up? What's good? Let's, what else you got? Very much like Steve Rogers, where he is in if you've seen this Captain America movie, where he's in the alleyway, getting the snot kicked out of him, and he tells the dude, he's like, is that all you got?
Yeah, I can do this all day.
Absolutely. So that's the same kind of vibes that I'm trying to send out to Miss Harley Fairfax there, and I think we're going to come up with something special, hopefully. There's a lot of talented ladies here on the show, and I just want to make my mark, because last time I was in Gadsden, they welcomed me with open arms. I'd never been there before. They had never seen me before. So the fact that they were so receptive and they were really on board with what I was trying to do, I hope we can make the same thing happen again, because I loved being there and I'm happy to be welcomed back.
That sounds really great, and I'm happy to have you in my home state. So this is going to be an amazing time, with all of these women and with you and all of the above. But how excited are you to even be on the same card as Jazz, who's like on her retirement tour and basically just looking to continue to make her mark this year?
It's awesome. Like, it's super mind-blowing. As soon as I was told this was going to happen, I was like, because I'm somebody who's like a sponge. I love going up to people, respectfully of course, but and
Yes.
asking and, you know, picking their brains and getting their opinions on things, because I'm someone who, you know, just wants to be the best at what I do. And how can I do that when I have somebody who's literally a living legend standing in front of me, has all this wealth of knowledge, who has worked in all the places that I hope to work one day? So I think the excitement can't be understated, and the fact that I'm gonna have a chance to, you know, learn from her and get some things going this weekend is something that I'm looking forward to, because I'm always up for doing seminars, whether it be in Gadsden, Alabama, or, you know, 10 minutes away from my house. You have one, I'll be there.
That's great. And I'm really pumped for it as well. Like, I feel like it's just going to be the most amazing thing to happen. And I'm just really excited to be getting into the independent, you know, wrestling atmosphere in terms of Alabama. And this will be my first independent show, period, because
Ooh.
I've only ever been to WWE shows ever. So like, this will be my first time ever, you know, being a part of an independent wrestling show and then being to one, period. So this is going to be an experience, and I'm just really excited, you know, for all of you girls, and just, you know, and excited for myself, and just for what it means for women's wrestling as a whole. Oh, I'm so excited. Okay.
Yes, I'm so excited for you. I didn't know this was your first independent show ever, so you're in for a treat. There's nothing like it. I love it.
Yeah, like, it seems like it's going to be really great. So I'm pumped. So how do you feel about the state of women's wrestling in terms of the independents and the mainstream? Yeah, how do you feel about women's wrestling now, about the state of it?
Man, I feel like this is like a recurring theme with a lot of things I've said today, so I apologize if I sound like a broken record, but just seeing the leaps and bounds in terms of where women's wrestling used to be and where it is now, like, it's just absolutely something that's incredible to me, to see that women are getting such a prominent stage to feature their talents on, and to show, you know, we're more than just the novelty act, or we're more than just, you know, eye candy to look at. You know, we're athletes. We have a lot to offer. We have a lot of entertainment value, and, you know, we can make just as much money, as not more than the guys. Like, I think it's something that I'm super happy to be a part of, and I tell people, to anybody who will listen, like, now above all else, I think is a really great time to be a women's wrestler. Like, of course, there are still hurdles to overcome and things to really work on, but above all else, just seeing how far we've come with the ladies that have paved the way, and the things that we've gotten able to do, and, like, even now, just having this all women's show in Alabama, I think that's something to really be commended for. So, you know, shout out to the BellaDonna Division for making this happen. I'm super excited, and, you know, I'm glad that you're excited too, because it's going to be a great night.
That's a really good answer. And even though, of course, there's still always so much, you know, so much more than that can be done, it's like, you can't really lie and pretend that nothing has happened. Like, there's so much history that has taken place with women's wrestling, even in more recent years, and I feel like it can only get, you know, better from here. And there's still so much work to be done, even sometimes behind the scenes, but still, at the very least, you know, ceilings are being broken, you know, records are being broken, everything, you know, is going to continue to go up, you know, in my opinion. So, and when it's up, it's stuck, like Cardi B says. So I got one last question for you. What does the future hold for Valentina Loca?
Ooh, I love that. This question is deep. Honestly, I just want to be happy with what I'm doing. I think that's the reason why I got into wrestling in the first place, is just to be happy and to make others happy. So I think wherever that carries me, whether it be to Gadsden, Alabama, back up to Canada, or even here in my backyard in Davenport, Iowa, I think above all else, I just want to be happy with what I'm doing, who I'm working with, what I'm doing, what stories I'm telling. And, you know, if I get to do more cool things with that, awesome. If I get to be on your television sets, that's great. I will definitely not say no. But at the end of the day, if I can just be happy with what I'm and the vibe and the message that I'm putting out, you know, that's all that matters to me.
Okay, that's a really good answer. And also, as a bonus note, BB Ryan is also on the card, and she also trains at Black and Brave. You know, have you two ever fought each other or crossed paths with each other?
Oh yeah, I know BB Ryan very well. So the crowd at the BellaDonna Division is in for a treat. Fun fact, I don't know if it's been released yet to YouTube, but the last time that me and BB Ryan crossed paths. I was on the receiving end of a double Samoan drop, if you can believe it. BB Ryan got not only me, but another young lady on her shoulders and gave us both a Samoan drop at the same time. So that's the kind of power, that's the kind of explosiveness that the people in Gadsden are going to be able to see witness to, because, well, BB Ryan might not have the most experience out of everyone. She definitely has the drive and that raw power to really match with anybody. So I'm excited to see what she does as well.
Okay, that sounds really great, and a double Samoan drop just sounds like, wow.
Oh yeah, it was.
I don't know if I've ever even seen that in my entire life. So I mean, oh my God, that makes me even more excited to see what the both of you have to offer, seeing as you both come from this, great academy, and you've both learned together and fought together and everything. So I'm really excited. Well, I just want to thank you, Valentina, for coming on the Hardy Wrestling Podcast. And if you can, just tell everyone, all the listeners, where to follow you and, find you on social media and stuff.
Absolutely. And thank you for having me on. It's been really awesome. I can talk all day. So having, the chance to be here and talk about how awesome wrestling is something that, I'll never say no to. But for right now, you guys can see me ramble more. I am on the same handle on all social media networks, so you can find me pretty easily. I'm at S West, like the direction, Spitfire on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, ? But if you search Valentina Loca, you'll find me. I'm the one who's making the ugly faces, so I'm not hard to find.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on my show, Valentina, and I look forward to seeing you this weekend, okay?
Yes, ma'am. I'll see you there.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Veronica.
Hello.
Hey.
Is this working?
Yes, it's working. I can hear you.
Awesome.
Well, thank you for joining me on the Hardy Wrestling Podcast. How are you doing?
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. Getting really excited about BellaDonna. There's so much going on. It's just exciting.
It really is. And we're going to get into it a little bit later in our conversation. But I'm going to start the interview how I always start my interviews and ask you, when did you fall in love with wrestling?
Oh, Stephanie, I was conceived in the backseat of a car at a indie wrestling show. So I do not believe that it was destiny. It just was meant to be. My dad was a wrestler. I mean, I don't remember not ever having something to do with wrestling. Even when I was a teenager, when, it's that kind of, it's cool still to you as a kid, but then you're like, I don't need to watch this anymore because I'm too grown up for this. Yeah, it was that secret obsession where every time an event was taking place, I would so be there and not tell a soul about it. So I was always in love with wrestling. I mean, did I really have a choice? I mean, I was born into it, technically, but conceived at a show too. So
so that really happened?
Yeah, I'm not making that.
Oh my goodness.
No.
That is probably the best start to an interview I've had in oh my God, in so long. Like, that's just the greatest.
Yeah, you can't make stuff. I mean, you could make stuff up like that, but whew, yeah, it was destiny.
Okay. So, was your mom a wrestler too?
No, she just liked all of them.
Okay. Well, so basically, since your father was a wrestler, and basically it was destiny for you to be in the business,
Yeah.
when you mention it that way. So, I mean, that's an amazing story that, that's how it started. Because initially, that's kind of how I got started, except my dad wasn't a wrestler. He was a wrestling fan.
Yeah.
So he kind of got me into it when I was 4, and I just started watching it like that. And then my grandmother, she watched it, and so it was kind of a family affair in terms of fandom. But nobody in my family's ever been in the business. So
I'm sorry, I lost you there for a second.
I said
I'm
no.
back.
Yeah, I said nobody's in my family's really been in the business per se, but we've just been fans for a long time. So, yeah. So when did you decide to pursue it as a career?
Well, I had a lot of goals that I wanted to achieve, and it was probably the third career on my list to achieve. I know this sounds hilarious, but Hooters Girl was like the number one.
Oh, wow.
I know that's hilarious, but I worked at Hooters while I was in school, and then once I finished school, I was a massage therapist, and I went on tour with different type of bands, and when touring was done, I just happened to be home. I was living in Tampa, Florida at the time, and I was home shopping for wedding dresses. Mm-hmm. And there was a show that my parents were going to. It was I'm pretty sure it was Wrestle Birmingham, and this was probably 2007, summer of 2007, and my mom says, well, I've got you an extra ticket since you're going to be here this weekend, because you're definitely going to want to go to this show. I said, why would I want to go to this show? Well, one of your favorite wrestlers that you were in love with will be there. And I said, oh, really? Which one? Well, it was Buff Bagwell. Oh man, I wore his shirt everywhere. And I was excited, and my fiance, who's my husband now, he actually went with us, and my sister was with us as well. My sister is about 6.5, 7 years younger than me, so she was really excited about seeing Buff as much as I was. And then, intermission comes, and you get to get in the ring with Buff and take a picture with him. And I said, I will be the first in line. Well, I wasn't. There were a lot of people that beat me to the line to get in the ring, but me and my sister, when we got up to the ring, honestly would never as adults stepped foot into a ring. And I told her, when we get up there, you get on one side, I'm gonna get on the other, and we're gonna Stacy Keibler this thing. And
oh wow,
by that I mean we're gonna go 1 foot over and do the sexy entrance and then go in. And she goes, you won't do it. I said, yeah, I will, but you gotta do it with me. And she's like, okay, but don't not do it, because I'm so doing it. So we actually entered the ring, that sexy Stacy Keibler entrance, and Buff looks at us like, what just happened? And we're just over the top excited. We'd completely forgot how we got in the ring, because we'd never been in the ring as adults. Now, as kids, when my dad had a ring, we'd get in there, but as adults, that was the first time we'd ever done that, ever, and we nailed it. And he just looks at us, well, are you guys in the business? And wrestling, he says. I said, we're in the business of getting our picture made with you. Well, we so got our little Polaroid pictures, I promise. And it was so much fun. That next day, one of the guys that was actually on the show knew my dad, called my dad, and said, hey, Buff Bagwell wanted me to give your daughters a phone call. I was like, uh-oh, what? But it was because he wanted to know how interested we were in being in the business. And I said, don't you think I'm a little too old for that now? I mean, at this time I was 24. Mm-hmm. And my dad goes, no, you can do it whenever you want to do it. Would you want to do it? I don't think you should do it. My dad was completely against it, and I was like, well, duh. I just never thought it would happen, because all the other stuff in life has happened. He goes, well, they're wanting you to come and check out this school. I said, okay. My sister was still too young. She was still in high school at the time, so she was not able to join us just yet. And by December, I'd moved back to Alabama and started training at the school that I went to, and it just took off from there. And I started training in December of 2007, and my first match was March 2008.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I mean, I was like, dang, what? I must have done something right. Well, I guess showing up and doing the things that I was supposed to do every week after week. And I mean, I want to say it was 6 weeks in, I broke my arm.
Oh, wow.
I did not stop going to training, cast and all. It didn't matter. I was in, and I loved every second of every pain I was in. I was all in. I was ready to go. But I was like, what? I'm already going to start wrestling? Whoa. Well, by 2009, I'd started doing some local traveling around the Southeast, and I was asked to come to Tennessee, and I worked with Burt Prentice. And as soon as I got in with Burt Prentice, it was like, hey, you're just going to travel with me and do it, whatever. And so I started doing Memphis wrestling with Jerry Lawler, and it just took off from there. It was incredible.
So it sounds like you kind of just had a fast track into the wrestling business outside of, your dad being in it, and then with your evolution and how you met Buff Bagwell and then going to training, like it seems like you were like a duck taking the water. You just went straight through it, and then finally, and then just didn't quit, and then got put in the business. Like, that's an amazing story.
Yeah, it wasn't hey, my dad got me in the business.
Right.
My dad, I mean, he still knew all these people and talked to them and still did he wasn't putting on his own shows, but he was still going to shows of friends that he knew, and never made a phone call, say, hey, my daughter's wrestling, you should check this out, kind of thing. It was I started with nothing. I didn't tell everybody that, hey, my dad's this guy, because honestly, they would have gone, who? I'm like, it's okay. He only worked with Continental and Mike Jackson forever. So it's not that he made it big, but people knew.
This podcast is brought to you by Progressive. Are you thinking more about how to tighten up your budget these days? Drivers who save by switching to Progressive save over $700 on average, and customers can qualify for an average of 6 discounts when they sign up. A little off your rate each month goes a long way. Get a quote today at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. National annual average insurance savings by new customers surveyed in 2020. Potential savings will vary. Discounts vary and are not available in all states and situations.
Who he was. He was respected, which is great. And I didn't want anything handed to me. I've never wanted it that way. So it was let's do this. I just put in the work, and it happened.
Yeah, that kind of reminds me of Carmella in the WWE and how she kind of got started.
I know a little bit of stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, her father was a wrestler, and I remember seeing Carmella in NXT, and I had no clue who she was. And then when she said in an interview that her father was a wrestler, and then when they did a documentary on her and you saw who he was, I was just like, oh, okay. It's kind of like, about him. He seemed like the type of person you knew about if you were in the business, but yes. to the outside, regular fan like me, because I wasn't born then, of course. But at the same time, an outside fan, you wouldn't necessarily know who he was, outside of that. So that's
right.
That's kind of, a parallel between you and her in that way. So, what was some of the greatest lessons that you learned while you were training in wrestling?
Keep your mouth shut and listen.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much of the opposite that happens in the business. Everybody wants to be somebody, obviously, but just because you've been in the business for a certain amount of time does not mean you know everything. Just because back in 1985 you wrestled this guy at this show, okay, Uncle Rico, just stop talking. Listen. If you stop learning in this business, you need to get out, because you should never ever stop learning. There's always going to be somebody bigger, there's always going to be somebody better, there's always going to be somebody that has higher flying moves or whatever you think is your niche. There's always going to be somebody better. So when you stop and listen, it's only going to help you.
Right. And I think that could be applied to any situation in life, even outside of wrestling. It's like, sometimes you just have people who just talk a whole lot, and then they just pretend like they know everything. But in actuality, there's so much, that you still don't know, because the world is so big, so it's just, if you don't, hush and listen, then
you might miss out on some serious stuff. Yeah.
Right. So
I've applied so much wrestling wise and wrestling terms to everyday situations. You always gotta know your next move. What are you gonna do? Well, if you don't really know, you can always listen. Somebody's gonna tell you.
Right. Yep, that's a good philosophy to have. So while you were wrestling, how exactly did the culture of independent wrestling, sort of treat you as you evolved as a wrestler and as a champion?
I was always told that I was before my time. Because I wasn't the figure girl that WWE had in mind at that time. There was a mold that you needed to fit into, and everybody looked the same or did this or did that, and I didn't. It was really irritating because I wasn't the thinnest girl. I did have muscles, but I didn't have some junk in the trunk. But it was okay, well, you need to lose this amount of weight. All right, so I'd go lose this amount of weight, come back. Your hair needs to be all one color. Okay, go back, fix my hair. I've lost the weight, I've changed the hair. No, we have to have your nails like this. You have to have, your outfit can't do this. And I'm like, this is just getting to be too much. But I wanted it so bad. Every time I was told to do something, I would do it.
Right.
But now it's like, it's time for women to shine. And I was the one who was trying to be the one that was not like everybody else. I didn't want to be the little Barbie doll girl. I had multicolor hair. I was just different. I think it helped in some ways being champion of different companies and maybe help get them noticed different places. But when it came to, hey, we're going to put you on TV, we need you to look like this, you got to have this, you got to have that. And now, if 10 years ago Veronica would have walked into anywhere, they'd be like, oh my God, yes, we need you.
Right.
But I get how times have changed, and thank God they have changed, because I would hate for every single female that's out there now to be the same. It's just boring. And this was also at a time where women were maybe mid-card 5-minute matches. Oh, there's a Divas match, so it'll be about 6 minutes with entrance and exit, so you probably get 2 minutes worth of actual wrestling. And that sucked because I was not that wrestler. I wanted to work. I liked entertaining, and now it's exactly what I always wanted it to be. So what better time now? I mean, obviously I'm done with wrestling, but it just blows my mind that I'm able to still be involved at a capacity where I'm not in the ring, but yet I'm still have my hands on a few things, and maybe I can help those other females who can take everything that I wanted to do 10 years ago and use it now, because it works now. I mean, that, you know, that's where it comes in of I was always before my time, which sucks, but it's finally changed.
Yes, definitely. I can only imagine, you know, how hard that must have been to know that you knew you were offering something different, but not everyone was open to that or perceptive to that at that time. And then seeing how it's evolved now, and then also with you being retired, I did want to ask, you know, if there was any opponent that you loved to face before you retired, and if there was any opponent that you would like to face now if you weren't retired.
That's a very easy question for me to answer, and it's actually the same person. And when she found out that I was retiring, like, it was done, it was officially done, I was not coming back, she actually sent me a text message and said, no, we did not get our final match, and we will still have our final match. And I'm like, girl, I'll be happy to just come watch you, because it's Sue Young. We had the best time traveling. The end of 2008, all through 2009 and 10. We traveled all over the continental U.S. I mean, it was like we were Peggy and Bambi Lee, Bambi and Peggy Lee, traveling, because that's what we did. We were Thursday through Sunday. We were always on the road, and we were always together. So it was so much fun. I mean, there were times that sometimes we did not go somewhere together. Like, we would meet there, and I remember being at one event where I did not see her before the show. I just knew when our match was, and the locker rooms were not where we could conjoin or anything. I just knew we were having a match. I see her as I'm getting in the ring, and that's the first time I see her, and we'd wrestled so much together that we knew what was going to be coming next, and it made it fun. It was just so much fun. And when I finally got the opportunity to get signed, she was there a year before me. And I just loved the messages that I would get from her. Oh my God, just hurry up and get here. I don't know how much more I can take. And by the time I actually got there or got the contract, I didn't go. My husband's family has a business here in Alabama that has been in the family for 60 years, and they offered my husband to come work for the family and take over the business when his parents retired. And it was the same week that I got the rest of my life pretty much planned out for me, at least for the next 5 years. So it was either it was going to FCW to make $25,000 a year, or inherit a multi-million-dollar company that down the road would, you know, benefit, and I would be able to not have to have all kinds of broken bones or injuries and stuff of that nature. So, I mean, it was the same exact week in 2011. And he said, we're going back to Tampa. There's no doubt in my mind. I'm telling my parents no. I said, no. I have gotten my dream. This is what I wanted to do. Just because I'm not the diva that you would see on TV, I think the best thing to do is to take up your parents' offer, and it's going to work out in the long run. And he didn't believe that I would say anything of that nature, because I was it was in July of 2011, because the rest of my year had already been planned out. I was going to SmackDown in like St. Louis or something for it all to be official, and I was all in. Of course, my dream was coming true, but at the same time, this is his dream. I've gotten my dream. I achieved it, but yours is a bit more important. So we took the offer of the family business over the WWE contract. So it was great. I did work for them a few times later, just little one-offs, and it was great to see all the people that I'd come up with, because the Usos did a lot of their training where I was training, and they actually they're my age, and they played football at I want to say it was a college in North Alabama with some guys that I went to high school with. So it was fun to see all of them and go over stories that we hadn't reminisced about. So it was the best thing to do in our situation. But I would definitely be with Sue. I could probably get in the ring with her today, and it would just be like riding a bike. Sue Young, I love you. I'm gonna have to text you. I'm gonna have to text you now.
That's amazing. Maybe one day the both of you will fight kind of like the same way Rocky and Apollo fought, but nobody knew. Like, that's what I imagined in my head. As you were describing it, I was like, well, maybe they'll fight again and have that last match, but it just won't be out in public. It'll just be like the same way Rocky and Apollo fought at the end of Rocky 3. Like, yeah,
she's gonna make sure it happens. I'm like, you do understand, like, I'm old, and she was a lot younger than me too, so it's fun. I got 2 kids. They're 6 and 8, and they love her. They like watching her character, especially now that she's all crazy, or not crazy. It's just fun to see all the people that I kind of sort of came up with, but was way older than them, in the limelight now, and tell my kids, oh, that's mommy's friend. Oh, mommy did this and this and this, and mommy and this person did. I mean, it's just, it's cool. I love her.
That's got to be amazing. And it seems like, you have a lot of peace in that decision that you did make about, leaving wrestling. Because a lot of people, when they retire from wrestling, it's like they retire and then they'll be gone for like maybe a year or 2, but then they pop back up.
Well,
or like they're just like, I can't give it up because they love it so much. But it seems like, you really do have peace about it.
Well, in 2011, when we did make that decision, it was the best decision. And I mean, you're getting in there and you're doing a contract and you're saying you're not going to have kids or this, and I was prepared. Well, my son was born 2012. Like a year later to the day. It was crazy because it was the same week all of that stuff happened for us. Was the week he was born. It was the 4th of July week. He was due on the 4th of July. He just came 2 days late. But I was like, okay, my kid's never going to know that I was a wrestler. I don't want him to know that life. Yeah. When he was about 2 years old, he had already turned 2, and I'd had our second child, which is our daughter. SmackDown came through Birmingham, and my brother Joshua O'Hagan, I don't know if you've heard of that little nerd, but he goes, we need to take Cash, that's my son, to SmackDown. I said, I don't know about that. He does like wrestling, but he does not know mommy did wrestling. He goes, well, he needs to know. And I'm like, fine, let's just take him, but leave mommy out of it. Well, of course, Road Dogg hooked us up with some tickets.
Oh, wow.
And the tickets that we got were front row behind the announcers. And at the time, one of the Usos was out with an injury, so the other brother was there doing commentary. And so was Jerry Lawler. Of course, we're sitting right behind them, and they see us and they're like, what are y'all doing here? This is crazy. They didn't know I had a kid, and so it was just really sweet to see. And then there's Daniel, who is a WWE referee. He gets out of the ring at after one of his matches. They go to, like, I guess a commercial break. He runs over to me and Josh and goes, "Oh my gosh, y'all have to wait for me after the show." Like, okay. Well, it was really fun. Cash, he had just turned 2, so he had no idea how cool it was for him to meet all of these people at 2 years old. Well, shortly after that, so that was 2014, Josh is like, "Hey, why don't you just come back and do some interviews for a company at the time called GCW?" And I said, "I don't know, Josh." He goes, "Come on, it'll be fun. Just be in the locker room. Just do the interviews for the TV show." I said, "Fine." So the end of 2015, I'm back at a show strictly to do maybe some color commentary and some pre and post match interviews. Well, it was probably February, maybe March of 2016 when they had talked me back into wrestling. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I said I was never going to do this. And at this time, my son is full-blown into wrestling, and my daughter thinks it's cool that mommy goes and does this kind of stuff. So I'm like, what is happening? Why? I said I would never let my kids know this. Well, one thing led to another, and then I'm back in the ring. I'm traveling all over the place again. And then a few people had told WWE that I was back, so that's when I started doing a couple one-offs. And my kid, he's so into John Cena and AJ Styles. I mean, the typical kid thing right away. I mean, when me and Josh would take him, when they would just come through, his first favorite was John Cena, but he never wanted to dress up like John Cena. The first favorite that he dressed up like when he went to SmackDown or Raw was Xavier Woods. Let me tell you, it was so exciting because I found a mini Francesca.
Oh my gosh, yes.
It was incredible. And then he had a major Dean Ambrose love. So when he got to meet all these guys, it was just so cool for him to be at that age, 5 years old, getting to meet like major WWE superstars, and he's just like, "Hey, hi." And John Cena tried to give him knuckles.
Oh my goodness.
He rejected John Cena's knuckles. I have never seen a child not just go crazy when they see John Cena. He literally held out his arm. He was like, "Dude, knuckles." And he's like, Cash just shook his head no. Well, it was, the best part was Randy Orton had never seen a kid deny John Cena either. And so John Cena's, but he tries to be funny and make a scene where, "Oh my gosh, he's not going to give me this." And Cash is laughing at him like, haha. Randy comes up and sticks out his hand to give Cash 5. Cash gives Randy Orton 5. He goes, "Oh my God, this is the coolest kid ever. I want my picture made with him." And so Cash, he's 5 years old. He doesn't know all this. But what's so great about it is I remember being 5 years old and my dad taking me back, and my favorite wrestler when I was 5 was Sting. I wanted to meet Sting. Now, this is Sting with blonde hair, the spiky hair.
Oh,
cool
yes.
Sting. And
he was a snack then.
Yes. So I mean,
but yeah, I'm sorry.
He was it in the 80s. That was just what it was. And my dad took me backstage, and I got to meet him when we were walking out, and he wanted to give me 5. He started signing something, and I said to my dad, "Dad, that's not Sting." And Sting laughs. And my dad said, "Yes, baby, it is. And I said, "No, it's not. I didn't know it was Sting because I never ever saw Sting without his paint on.
Oh.
So it was a fun memory to know that my kid at 5 got to meet all of his cool favorite people. And I remember being 5 and going back and meeting all of the cool people, like when it was WCW that came through. And I think my dad was doing some referee stuff for them when they were coming through. So I got to go back and say, meet some people, but it was really cool. So, yeah.
That's amazing. And it's so funny because I didn't start meeting wrestlers until I got like in my 20s. So
oh wow.
Yeah, but when it happens, and the little kid in you, it's still very much excited. So
yeah,
I can't even sit here and pretend like that, like it's still not cool. I can't. Like I almost passed out when I met Charlotte Flair. Like I saw her head through the window and I was like, ah! It was bad.
Was she taller than you expected her to be?
Actually, no. Like
really?
She was, yeah.
Well, see, I'm short, I guess. So I'm like, man, she is as tall as she looks on TV. Dang.
Yeah, not to me, I guess, because I'm 5'6", and she looked like she was maybe 5'9". She looks way taller on television than she did in real life to me.
Well, me and Natty are the same height.
Oh,
so,
wow.
Yeah. I want to be 5'6".
That's amazing. So I want to ask you, how do you feel? Well, you kind of alluded to it a little bit, earlier, but how exactly do you feel about the state of women's wrestling now? And what do you think, and where do you think it could possibly go? And this can translate towards the indies and mainstream wrestling as well in terms of the women.
Oh man. Once the revolution, I guess, started and it was okay for women to be a different size or a different color or wear their hair different ways, it was just amazing to see. That's what I was envisioning 10 years ago. That's what I wanted women's wrestling to be. And I guess being before my time, now is the time, which is the reason for the BellaDonna division. It's all women, not just your Barbie doll picture, the people that we can put on the posters, because that's not real women. I mean, yes, those women are real, but in reality, there's only a handful of girls that actually look like Barbie.
Right.
So, and I'm not one of those girls. Look, I'm serious. Sir Mix-a-Lot wrote a song about me, so why would I want to fit in that mold?
Me too.
So it's amazing to see that it's finally, I mean, everything seems to be so far behind in times, but it's finally here. Whether you're the skinniest little girl, you are the fattest girl, but you have the same love. You get to wrestle. If that's your job and that's what you know and that's what you love, it's so easy to be able to, if you know what you're doing, you can be in the business. Where right. I wasn't able to do that, and I don't want any. I don't want to sound like that I had to do so much more to be a female wrestler back in these days. But yeah, I did. But now, I mean, I couldn't imagine how awesome it is to be out there and to be you and not have to worry about, do I need to lose weight? Should I have not ate that last night? That kind of situation. It is just girls' time to shine. No matter the size, your height, your color, what your character may be, it doesn't matter, because I am woman. Hear me roar. We're going to roar and we're going to be loud. I mean, girls, you can main event WrestleMania now. So, I mean, what's next for women's wrestling? Hey, there's this thing called the BellaDonna Division. We're having our first show. Let me tell you about it. It's all women. From the front to the back, from the side to side. I'm serious. People, it's like, whoa. The people that are at the front, girls. People that are running production, girls. People that are running the cameras, girls. Every single wrestling match, girls. Promoters, girls. It's our time to shine. So we are trying something that I wanted to do 10 years ago, where it's all females. I know it's kind of tried to been done a little bit, but there were still males running production or booking talent or running cameras and editing and all of this and that. But no, commentary, girls, ringside, everything, girls, it's all women. We are there to run the show, make it the best that it can possibly be, or better, and come out on top of the wrestling business, from indies to professional. I mean, I feel like we're all professional, but you just have to get out there. You have to have somebody that's willing to step up and step out of their comfort zone to be able to do something of this status, I guess. And that's what we're hoping for with the BellaDonna division, because it's time that women can do anything, obviously, but it's our time to prove that we can.
Well, that definitely, speaks like to the passion, for women's wrestling and where it could possibly go, and how the BellaDonna division can, contribute to the future of women's wrestling. And I can say, as a woman in the South who's born and raised here in Birmingham, I am definitely so proud to be a part of this, in some small way, shape, or form. Even as a commentary, as a person who's doing commentary for the very first time and using my voice, in that way, like to elevate women's wrestling, like it just means the world to me to be a part of it. So
it's exciting. We're excited to have you there too.
Oh my gosh. I'm excited to be there. Like, you have no idea. Like, I'm really pumped because I've just been loving wrestling my whole life, and then to be able to use my voice for this platform, for my podcast, and then to do something like this, that is an all-female event, like Evolution and so many other events and stuff like that that's been all women. It means the world to me. So to be able to, I'm just really excited to be a part of it, like Saturday. So what matches are you looking forward to seeing?
Woo! Oh my gosh. Well, the card is subject to change, so you never know what surprises we may have up our sleeve.
Yes.
But man, jeez, I can't tell you about the main event, so I mean,
that's perfectly fine.
It's supposed to be a surprise. I'm really looking forward to seeing Jazz. I have not seen her in a hot minute. I want to say our last gathering was about probably 2011, where we did like an all-girl show, but it wasn't like an all-girl show that we're doing as the BellaDonna, like all women. There were men that were involved, but it was all girls that worked on the show, as in wrestled. I'm really excited about seeing her because everything she touches is gold. It's just perfect. Anyways, but there's so many. I mean, gee whiz, just one would be hard to, I don't know. I mean, me and Casey talked about some matches that are happening, and she is really, really interested in watching, as in being out in the crowd for Shalandra's match. Shalance, I mean, we've had our differences in the past, but sister can sing, and from what Casey has said about this match, it might be the one that I told Casey, I was like, do we have any front row tickets left? Because I might have to buy one for this match, because it's something, it's just dynamite in both women. They've never worked each other before, and they're not, gee whiz, it's just going to be something that's going to be explosive, and that's just something that you don't want to miss, I mean, I'm sure every single match is going to be off the charts with excitement, but at the same time, it's like, God, I don't want to miss anything.
Right.
But I'm also the promoter and the owner, so I have to put out fires left and right with people. Dang.
Yeah.
I might have, this sucks. I'm going to have to miss this. So thank God it's being filmed. So I can go back and go, yes, that's awesome. Just in case.
Right. Like, at least it's being filmed, so you can go back and look and enjoy it in a way in which you kind of can't, because you're running the ship. So
yeah, I'm gonna be running around with I'm gonna have very, very bad hair day that day, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out my hair situation now as we speak. So
I'm probably gonna have to wear a ponytail just so I won't pull it out.
Yeah. But I have faith. I have faith in you. It's gonna be great. I have faith in everyone. As a part of the show, like I have faith in everyone. It's gonna be fantastic.
I'm excited. Almost can't sleep. Excited.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. But
it's almost here.
Yeah, it is. So, as a wrestler, as a retired wrestler from Alabama, how much do you want wrestling to grow here in the state? Because I know, even though I'm a wrestling fan, I really didn't know that we had that much. I didn't know we had an independent scene here until maybe a couple of years ago. So this is just all like discovering a whole new world.
Oh yeah, there's a lot. I would like for there to be more people to enjoy wrestling again.
Mm-hmm.
As in, I want people to know about independent wrestling, not compare it to the production of WWE.
Right.
I want them to understand that this is I don't want to go watch that fake stuff. Child, the amount of things that happened in my matches that were not fake. I mean, we punch each other. We take the falls. The bumps are real. Every move that we take is real. I hate when people talk about the fakeness. Oh, that's the fake stuff. I'm like,
yeah, I hate it too.
And my husband, who has been to every match that he could possibly be at with me, and because I don't tell my personal life to everybody. If they don't know that I was a wrestler in a previous career, I do not let that just slip out randomly. But if they're like, oh my gosh, you wrestled? I had no idea you were in the Alabama Wrestling Hall of Fame. I'm like, oh, here we go. But it's that fake stuff. And my husband will even quickly go, no, don't say fake. Don't say fake. So I would love for the independent scene to have more publicity. I wish there were people that would, instead of wasting their nights going to a bar or, hey, let's just go have dinner and a movie. I mean, I know 2020 kind of shut a lot of things down, but I would love to see you're putting money back into your state. You're giving jobs, just go to an event. I promise every single person, every single time, you're going to get your money's worth. It is going to be entertaining. And if the wrestling is not entertaining to you, the people around you will not fail you, because there's all kinds of shapes and sizes, personalities at every independent wrestling event, and you never know which one is going to be sitting beside you, how loud they're going to scream, or who they're going to be a fan of. It's exciting to see. So I would love for people to actually start enjoying the entertainment instead of, oh, that's stupid. Oh, it drives me crazy. I would love it to grow so much. But it's just something that we have to have faith in, and people like all the independent companies to continue to do. But you got to get the word out. So I don't even know where to begin on letting everyone know. I mean, because there's so much. There's a lot of wrestling in North Alabama, for sure. Like the BellaDonna Division is actually going to be out of Gadsden, Alabama for a minute before we start traveling the world. But it's amazing. I mean, drive an hour. You do that going to work.
Right.
Sitting in traffic. Just take the time to enjoy. I mean, it's an art and it's a talent, and it's like you go to all these football games and blah 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 blah. Yes. You're paying how much money for one thing that happens, same thing, and you're just hoping for that one person to win, when you can go to an independent wrestling show and cheer for all the good guys or cheer for all the bad guys, or just listen to the idiots around you and be entertained way more than going to a karaoke bar.
It's so funny you said karaoke bar. That's like one of my favorite things to do.
I love karaoke.
I love karaoke to death. But if I had to choose between going to that or a wrestling show, like
you get your money's worth at the wrestling show,
I would definitely go to the wrestling show. Like, seriously.
Yep.
So I really appreciate, you actually saying that and speaking to that, in the case of the state of Alabama as a whole. And I also want to say congratulations on you being an Alabama Pro Wrestling Hall of Famer. That's amazing.
Thank you.
Like,
yeah, it was a major shock.
It was a shock to you, really?
Yes. I was like, whoa. That was fast. Wait, what? Whoa. Yeah, only the second female in that Hall of Fame too.
Oh, who's the first?
Daphne.
Oh, okay, Daphne. Cool.
Yep. So, love her, good friend. Loved learning everything I could possibly learn from her in the ring. It was just an honor I was there when she was inducted, but had no idea that I would be inducted that next year. It was crazy. Absolutely crazy.
I bet it was, but that's definitely a cool thing. And here's some more female inductees happening at some point. So my last question to you is this: what do you hope your legacy in wrestling, what does the future hold for you, ma'am?
I would like to leave women knowing that no matter who you are or where you are in the business, as in you've been a veteran for 15 years or you've been in the business this long or you're just starting out, no matter the ranking, you need to have respect for yourself and the business and the people who are in the business with you. We're all going to have people that we don't like, we can't get along with, you won't work with. I get it. I've been there. But still have the respect for the business to continue the business side of wrestling. And only people who are in the business will understand that, because at some point I'm sure something horrible or someone said something bad or somebody has wanted you to do something to get to a point where, hey, you need to do this if you want to get to this level of wrestling with me. There's that Me Too movement.
Right.
Those things do not have to happen. Just show your self-respect. It might not be the timing that you want it to be on how fast you want to get there, and that's fine. Everything's going to play out. Just continue to show respect for yourself, others in the business, and the business itself. And I forgot the other part of the question.
Yeah, I just asked you, what does the future hold for you?
For me, I I trained at an academy for about 2 years. I love teaching. I love it. I don't see myself being able to have anything to do with this school because I'm not anywhere near a school and I don't plan on moving anytime soon. I mean, with the BellaDonna Division, I still feel like I can definitely be involved with Casey there, she's so more in tune with the female wrestlers in the indie world right now. Mm-hmm. That when she can put those people together, this will be a good match, and they can figure out what they have. I can help them do things and put things together. But that's all. I would love to have some kind of training capacity, but we'll see. Maybe. It's fun, but I like being behind the scenes. I don't have to be the person that's out there all the time being seen. I like putting out the fires like I plan to do a lot of this weekend and making it run, if that makes any kind of sense.
No, it makes all the sense, actually. So, yeah. Well, Miss Veronica, I want to thank you so much. It's been an honor having you on my show. So, if you could tell everyone where they could follow you on social media and just put yourself over, then that would be great.
I'm the wrong person to do that. Yeah, okay. I think that it's Veronica Fairchild on the Facebook and Instagram. Those are the only two that I know of. So if anybody's sending you something else, it's not really me. This weekend is May 15th, the BellaDonna Division, the very first all-women show. Is called Genesis, and it is going to be absolutely amazing. I would love for you to go ahead and get your tickets because we're going to be at capacity very soon. I would love to see each and every one of you there, and I can't wait to see what the future holds.
All right. Thank you so much for coming on the Hardy Wrestling Podcast, and I look forward to seeing you this weekend.
Thank you so much. Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Definitely. Okay, so thank you for listening to this new episode of the Hardy Wrestling Podcast. And I definitely want to give a special thank you and a special shout out to all of the girls from the BellaDonna Division who came on my show within the past few weeks. That's Casey Dillon, Veronica Fairchild, both of the owners of the BellaDonna Division, Brittany Blake, The Woad, Valentina Loca. Thank you guys so much for coming on my show ahead of Genesis this weekend, which is Saturday, as a matter of fact. So if you're listening to this episode, if you have the opportunity, please go to my Instagram, that's at Hardy Wrestling Podcast, and use the link in the bio to buy you a ticket to this show if you're in the Gadsden, Alabama area, or even in Birmingham, and if you want to see this show, please go out and support women's wrestling. Tickets are still on sale. General admission is $15. Ringside seats is $20. So please come out and support women's wrestling here in the South. And as always, you can support the Hardy Wrestling Podcast, like I said, on Instagram at Hardy Wrestling Podcast, on Twitter at Hardy Wrestle Pod, and listen to me everywhere you get your podcasts. That's Anchor, Spotify, my YouTube channel, Hardy Wrestling Podcast, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts, and anywhere else you can get them. So, my last 2 episodes for this season will be coming out next week, and it's going to be really special, and I'm going to announce that probably Sunday. So please be on the lookout for what I have coming up next in the next 2 episodes. It's going to be really cool, and I hope you enjoy it, and I hope you've continuously enjoyed this season, what I've been able to bring to you guys. So in light of that, I hope you're being your best selves this week, and I hope you are being the light of the world and just channeling
who you are and building tables and knocking down glass ceilings and doing whatever it is that you do well. So, with that in mind, thank you for listening to the Hardy Wrestling Podcast with your girl Stephanie Hardy. And until next time, bye y'all.
This podcast is brought to you by Progressive. Are you thinking more about how to tighten up your budget these days? Drivers who save by switching to Progressive save over $700 on average, and customers can qualify for an average of 6 discounts when they sign up. A little off your rate each month goes a long way. Get a quote today at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. National annual average insurance savings by new customers surveyed in 2020. Potential savings will vary. Discounts vary and are not available in all states and situations.